And what's up? We are back on the CEO Pulse podcast where you get the real, the raw, and the mind of entrepreneurship. Let's talk mortgages. Let's talk finance. We are sitting down with Jonathan and Geoff, and they are the owners of Guide to the Grind. Okay, this is an umbrella name for multiple different businesses. One of them being a mortgage plan, where you guys specialize in educating clients and also educating people or professionals, right, in the mortgage business on how to use the existing tools that are out there to improve the investment of people in general, right? So it's an interesting twist. Jonathan, you have an extensive, track record when it comes to having an agency, right? You have over 90 agents and done over $1 billion in funding, right, in Canada. So one of the largest firms in Canada at some point, and then Geoff, involved in institutional funding for a long time. So it's interesting to have that perspective right now, especially as times are so volatile and just nationwide, right? Everything's crazy. So I can't wait to pick your guys' brain on what's going on at a financial level and see how this whole model just kind of factors into it. So welcome to the show.
I'm super excited to be here. Thanks so much, Rafael. It's the first time I've had somebody want to actually interview us in a long time. When you did the countdown, I almost started with my intro.
Well, I was looking because usually Geoff starts it out for us, and I was like, okay, ready, okay, go, Geoff. Oh, wait, it started the same. It started with the 3, 2, 1.
So I was on the other side of the mic a couple of weeks ago, which was a super fun conversation too. So I had a lot of fun on that interview. Now it's my time to pick your guys' brains. So give us a little bit of context on what you guys do from your own words.
Jonathan, you want to go or you want me to go?
You usually start things off, so why don't you start things off and I'll add in.
Geoff is being super shy right now, and it's like it's out of character.
Yeah, I'm usually the talker. We're like Penn and Teller, only Jonathan does speak. Just what he says is always super important. So when he does speak, everybody gets quiet and waits for him. And I just kind of tend to ramble. But we really. Let me back it up a second. We have a mission to get to the market. For one thing, I believe that right now, I also have a background in sales and marketing. And right now, more than ever, we need to be leading with value in the market. Excuse me. Right now, especially in Canada, I don't know what it's like in the States as far as realtors. The market right now is pretty sketchy. They have to renew their licenses every 2 years. Over the last, say, 5 years, it's been a heyday. I mean, all you needed was a pulse to be able to sell a house.
Yeah.
And now we're going to start seeing those people who, maybe sold one house a year doing a half decent job that aren't going to sell a house for the next 5, 10, 15 years. Who knows how long the cycle is going to last?
Yeah.
But we can help stem that tide or that loss of agents by educating them on a couple of things. First and foremost, on what their clients need. Mm-hmm. We find that mortgages are kind of like a phone bill or a phone plan. When you figure it out, you finally get all the bells and whistles. They set it up, and then 5 years later, the bank contacts them and tells them they got to pay more money. Or, people tend to get caught by that.
Something adjusted. Yeah, crazy.
Exactly.
Things like,
adjustable rate mortgages back in the 2008 era when people were walking away from their homes.
Yeah.
People just don't understand that stuff. It's complicated. And by educating each step of the way and going right down to the granular root with the client, helping that client understand what's going on with their mortgage, we do a few things. One, we're educating them. So they're going to get a lot more value out of their mortgage. One of the main tenets of what we do is helping people understand that the way that they're structured currently, they could pay off their mortgage in half the time and save a few $100,000 in interest if they just changed the way that they're structured.
Okay, I'm going to ask you to break that down. I don't want to cut you off though. So we'll circle back around to that question because I think that's huge.
Yeah. So, and then the next thing that we're doing is we're helping the realtor not only educate their client, but create residual clients. I think it was Gil Gerard, the world's greatest car salesman, figured out that every client was going to buy a car about every 5 years or 4 years. And that averaged out to be something like 5 or 6 cars they'd buy in their lifetime. And they had those clients keep coming back. So he ended up breaking world records and all that stuff. Well, it's the same with houses. And every realtor that I talk to, I sit down with them and educate them on our system and how everything works. And I say to them, let me ask you, have you ever had a client go in, they set the mortgage? Your clients are great at understanding how to buy a house. They're terrible at understanding their mortgage. And 4 or 5 years down the road, you find out that they either bought or sold a house and they didn't use you. They used somebody else.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's the same with mortgage agents. Mortgage agents get their folks a mortgage. And, the worst part about being a mortgage agent, Jonathan, you can speak on this more than I can because he's got way more experience in the world. But the second that you acquire a client, the banks are now trying to take those clients away from you. We have to take the client to, say, one of the big 5 banks here in Canada. And then a lot of times, what do they have to do? They have to go into the actual location, that branch, and do a branch signing.
Yeah.
Why? So they can sell you the credit card and they can sell you the line of credit and all these other things.
Yeah.
So it's kind of it's a hamster wheel of trying to keep these clients if you're not doing a really good job of educating them, and more than anything, wowing them with the knowledge that you can share with them for free.
I like to think that you got to become the go-to guy, right? For whatever your niche is. In my case, like we have to be the go-to people for people who want to sell their house investment wise or traditional sales because of the brokerage and that sort of thing. Same thing for mortgages. You have to be the go-to person for anything loan related. Yeah.
And the best way to do that is to stay top of mind. It's the oldest. I loved having our conversation with you about cold calling, because cold calling is the basis of what we do. And we're pretty darn good at it, but and actually have grown to like it. I love it when I'm having a down day and Jonathan calls me and he's pumped up, because it's usually the other way around. He's like, how many calls did you make today? I'm like, I made 5 and I got voicemails. I made like 25 and it's awesome. We get each other going. But going back to the old school, not only methods, but the old truths of sales are important more now than ever. There's no such thing as new truths. They're truths for a reason. Cold calling, adding value first, and staying in touch, top of mind with your client are the most important things that have been sales forever and will continue to be sales. So the big things are, how do you stay top of mind? Well, I guarantee you they're not thinking about you every time they make a mortgage payment, unless you really did something wrong with their mortgage payment.
Yeah. Well, one thing that happens too is like the mortgages get sold right away, right? So like if you were linked to that document, that paperwork, that transaction at the beginning as a mortgage or loan officer, they're going to send it over to Wells Fargo. They're going to send it over to Chase, whatever, whoever buys it. Now they keep seeing that name, and then they have a different rep underneath that, so it's almost a very transactional period where mortgage, or loan originators stay there, right? By default, you have to go the extra mile and actually put the effort in to stay top of mind.
Yeah,
well, that's it. Sorry, go ahead, JT. I've spoken enough.
I mean, a big part of it, and this is what Geoff has been kind of talking, or alluding to, not talking directly to, but how to add the value. It's about changing the conversation. It's not making it about the mortgage. I mean, a lot of people, when it comes about the mortgage itself, what's their only concern? What rate am I getting? Yeah.
What's my monthly payment? Yeah.
Yeah. Well, what's my rate? What's my monthly payment? And that's really about it. Yeah. That's what most people concern themselves with. Really, it's about changing the conversation, though, helping them on the education side, really helping them see the bigger picture, helping them understand that, yes, the mortgage is what it is. But at the end of the day, as Geoff said, there are different strategies they can use to help the mortgage go way faster. Well, we can't affect the rates that seem to be climbing right now. There are certain strategies that can be done to pay the mortgage off in significantly less time without affecting their monthly cash flow. And then the next side, which is the big educational piece, is okay, they've got the house. But very few people, this was both on the real estate side and on the mortgage side, really talk about them and what are their financial goals as a household. I mean, let's talk about what are the top 3 financial goals of the average household. Number 1, how they can pay their mortgage off.
Yeah.
Number two, if they got children, dealing with their kids' education. Pretty much every parent wants to do best by their child. They want to get them into a good school. They want the means to pay for that. And when it comes time to pay for that, what are we seeing? We're seeing so many kids coming out of school with hundreds of thousands of dollars in school debt. Now, how are they starting out? Number three is, after they deal with those two things, how do they actually look at, really plan for their own retirement, their own, call it retirement, call it lifestyle, call it what they want, but really, how do they provide really the goals and dreams that their family truly desires?
Yeah. Very, very valid concerns, right? As you go about it. So you talked about structure twice. What are some things that people can come in and do to improve or actually pay their mortgages faster without, and you said without affecting your cash flow on a monthly? So
Jonathan, you want to play rock, paper, scissors for it?
Okay, ready? Let's go.
Ooh. Listen, when two people battle it out,
Ready?
an answer, it's bound to be good.
First thing I can say, Jonathan will give you the details. I'll give you the sales statement. Get rid of your checking account. Get rid of your checking account. Use a line of credit exactly the same way as a checking account. You can have your bills deposited there. You can have your payments, monthly payments come out of there, but they work exactly the same. And the secret to this is your mortgage charges interest a certain way, your credit card charges interest a certain way, and a line of credit charges interest a certain way. And Jonathan, feel free to jump in here. We can totally roll off of each other on this one. Sorry, yeah, go ahead.
Okay, well, you told me to jump in, so I'm going to jump in.
Jump in.
As you were saying with the line of credit, and most people don't realize this, but the line of credit will function and can function in an identical way to the checking account. What usually happens, you've got the checking account sitting there, average monthly balance $3,000-4,000. It depends on the household. Some it's a little less, some it's a little bit more. But if you're carrying a mortgage of, let's say, $300,000, and you're sitting there with $3,000-4,000 every single month sitting in your checking account as an average balance, because pay comes in, you pay your bills, and it goes up and down. Why not flip that over to a line of credit, make a lump sum payment at the start of the year from the line of credit paying your mortgage down? Now, essentially, this money that's sitting there in your checking account that earns nothing as far as interest, now you're reducing your interest charges by having that $3,000-4,000 reduce the interest you're paying over the course of the year.
The great thing about this is, and this is the beauty of it, when you pay that lump sum, it goes directly to principal.
Yeah.
So if you look at amortization schedule, you're skipping 10 months of interest charges. Those interest charges are front end loaded. They're like on a $500,000 mortgage, you're looking at $2,500 of your payment or give or take going directly towards interest. But if you take that 10 grand and you knock off $10,000 worth of that amortization schedule, that initial jump skips 10 payments of $2,500 a piece. What is it? $36,000 on a $500,000 mortgage. You save without doing it one time.
That was using a $500,000 mortgage, $10,000 lump sum payment, 5% rate.
Which is insane. One payment is $36,000, but we take it a step further because a line of credit charges interest on a average daily balance, not the balance at the start of the month.
Right.
You make all your payments on your credit card. You go out for dinner, you put it on your credit card, phone bill, credit card, anything you can pay from the credit card, you put it on the credit card. At the end of the month, before you've got that 30-day grace period, before you have to pay that credit, you transfer everything out of your line of credit. But all month, you've been getting your payments put into the line of credit. By the end of the month, you pay all of your bills, but you're only getting charged for that full 10 grand amount. And the numbers are going to vary. Obviously, it's going to depend on the people. But the only time you're getting charged at the end for the last day or two for all of that interest. The difference at the end of the year is something like $32,000 to a $400 interest charge. So is it 32 or 36,000?
It was 32. 32 based on those numbers. And as rates continue to climb, the savings you're going to get interest wise will be even more.
Yeah.
So obviously this sounds super complicated the first time you go through it.
Well, I
It's
mean,
not.
I'm trying to picture the just the line of credit in place and the statement that you made, right, about using it as a checking account. I think that simplifies
Yeah,
things
absolutely.
quite a bit. Yeah.
And it really is just using the bank's rules in a different way.
Yeah.
You know, I do think of the banks as the enemy, but they're more like, they're more like a mountain. They just are what they are.
Yeah.
They're not necessarily out there trying to take money away from people. So why not use their rules more to our advantage?
Yeah. I mean, it's their business model. That's what it
Yeah.
is, right? They use our money to make money, and it just that's how it works. But why now, like you said, you just tip the or flip the model and front load, those fees that they would be charging otherwise.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And we were talking about origin story a little bit before we got
Yeah.
on here, and I'll just give you the quick cliff notes for you guys, Cole's notes for us. What happened? My mom passed away about 10 years ago, and I had to deal with the business of dying, which sucks. There's nothing good about a parent passing away, but when you actually see their finances, I was a baby compared to where I am now in my understanding of finance, but that was the tipping point for me, because I looked at her investments. She was a business owner for 22 years. She owned a hair salon and she worked her tail off, hardest working woman I ever met. And I looked at her finances and I realized there was no way she was ever going to be able to retire. Mm. She had 40 grand sitting on a credit card that she owed, and she had a mutual fund with 10 grand in it. The credit card was charging her 20% interest for the year. So what's 20? What is that? 20%, 8 grand a year in interest. And her investments are making her $600 a year. It would have saved her like $1,200 a year just to move the money from the investments over to the credit card.
Yeah.
And I thought, how many other people are set up like this? And I don't blame the investment person. I don't blame anybody for it, but people have their lane.
Yeah.
And that's what they stay in. They were looking at the whole picture. And because of that, my mom is working as hard as she would have never been able to retire. If she didn't pass away, she would have never stopped working.
Yeah.
And it was because of the way she was set up. If people just change that structure and look at the way that they're structured, like, number one is, if you have debt, don't have investments. Take the investments and pay off the debt, unless it's good debt. There is always good debt. There's great debt even. But if you got 40 grand sitting on a credit card, there's no point in having 10 grand sitting in a mutual fund. The math just doesn't, that dog doesn't hunt.
Yeah.
So that kind of put me on a mission to like, hey, how many other people are going through this same thing?
It's I think it's important to realize, right, that we have this understanding of finances, this conditioning that, okay, cool, I have investments. Just, for the mere definition of the word investment and knowing that you have an investment over there. Like a lot of times I think we lose, and I've been guilty of that in the past, we lose the control of the debt because there's investments in place. Oh, it's all right. I got investments in place. Yeah, but what is your debt doing? Is it kicking your butt when it comes to interest? Is it, is there a way to just play out of it, or is it going to eat up everything that your investments, are doing on the other side? So,
I think one of the most important things with Times doing what they're doing right now is something that Jonathan actually always says. It's, oh gosh, I forgot what I was going to say, Jonathan. I hate when that happens.
I'm not sure where you're going with this either. So
being proactive when it comes to debt and spiraling out of control. If you know that you're going to miss a mortgage payment, let's say you lost your job and you're coming to the end of your money, what do you say to do, Jonathan? I'm setting you up, by the way. Take the ball.
Yeah. Well, back where you're saying about be proactive. I mean, it's be proactive. Contact the lender. Once you miss a payment, you're in trouble. Yeah. If you miss a payment, you're late, then they're going to be like, sorry, we can't do anything. But if you're proactive, you call them in advance. And I know this from talking with lenders, as they basically tell them, we're in the business of lending money. Outside of private guys are a different story. You got someone sitting there charging you 12, 14% on a second mortgage. That some of them are in the business of being predatory and foreclosing, and they're going to make way more that way. But I know with lenders, they're like, we're in the business of lending money. We make our money on the spreads. That's how we make our money. We are not in the business of owning property.
Yeah.
We will have to sometimes, and we know that, we understand we've got to go through, foreclose, take a property over, and then work on selling it. But that's not our business model. So if you are in a situation where, yeah, you go through some hardship of some kind, and you know, okay, you know what, this month is going to be tight. I've seen situations where lenders have, you know what, we'll defer payments. We'll just obviously the interest will continue to accrue, but we'll defer payments for 3 months. Is that enough for you?
Yeah.
We will make it an interest only payment for the next 6 months. Will that work? I've also seen a situation where this is actually the mortgage insurers. I guess it's similar to your Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac.
Yeah.
So one of the mortgage insurers, CMHC, they actually stepped in, which is a Canadian Mortgage Housing Corporation up here. They actually stepped in and said, you know what we can do? We look at your house with what's going on. We can actually give you the money so you can put in a rental suite in the basement to help your monthly cash flows.
Yeah. Create the money to pay us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Nice. Is it, are the same, like, for example, we were talking about tools, we were talking about education. Is it very similar to, because I know mainly you guys operate, are you guys still just operating in Canada, or do you guys operate everywhere?
Great question. We are actually in the process of setting up some channels in the US. Actually, I know you're in the Phoenix area. I've got some friends down there that we're going to be chatting with as well. Nice. Yeah, well, you know what? We really wanted to start. We started with our own mortgage team here in Canada. As we started doing this, you know, the people that we're parked with a larger mortgage brokerage, and what was it they said? Wow, nobody's doing this, isn't that what? And oh, my favorite part about it, you guys are really American in the way that you do this.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's from everything that we're talking about right now. I mean, it's it sounds, I mean, it makes sense, right? And it sounds like it's principles that you could apply, because it's not necessarily talking about, you know, breaking out the details of, okay, you got to use this company to do this, and this is the only one that allows this and that. We're talking about, you know, just principles of restructuring the way that your mortgage works, right?
Yeah.
Which, I mean, it's doable in the States as well. So
here's the thing: we put out that education for free. We don't charge anybody for that, in the hopes that they're going to use us for mortgage brokering in the future. That's why we've started expanding into the US with some of our contacts down there, to be able to set this up. Because I mean, it's a scary time right now, and anybody that can pay off their mortgage in half the time. But the other key to this is that the line of credit that Jonathan helps you set up, that you're able to pay off and use to pay off, that becomes available to you the second it's paid off. So now you've got a safety net behind you of the money you just paid.
Yeah.
It's using the same money. It's just using it more effectively and more efficiently.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, we take it a step up to the realtor, to like, hey, realtors, show your clients how to do this, because now they're going to start building up equity. Especially, I don't know, there's pockets everywhere. It's going to be different wherever you are, but where I am, I'm near Niagara Falls, to give you a little bit of perspective. I'm not in Toronto. Jonathan's right in Toronto proper. I'm closer to, you know, Buffalo, basically, Niagara Falls. We saw a 40% equity jump in a month in 2021. In March of 2021, houses out in my area jumped 40% pretty much overnight.
Yeah, insane.
Now, anybody who's bought since then, buyer beware. It's a little crazy. It's still a good market. There's still lots of opportunity. But anybody that bought, say, 5 years ago, they've really realized some true equity. And they actually have the ability to now start going out there and looking at buying an investment property and having somebody else pay the mortgage for that. Or one of my favorite techniques that Jonathan uses is getting a second property by, I don't know what the rules are where you are. You have to, you know, abide by state and local laws.
Yeah.
But here in Canada, you're able to move your principal residence and still only put 5% down, whereas an investment property would have to be 20% down.
Like a
depending
area.
Yeah. Whereas if you move your principal residence and you still keep the first place, you don't have to put 20% down on your principal residence. It's 5% down. But now you own a rental property as well.
Yeah.
And then, of course, there's all sorts of techniques like the secondary suites, and coach houses now are becoming big in Toronto.
Coach houses, what are those?
It's putting a third property on a third suite on a property. So like above the garage in the back alley.
Yeah.
Just because it's so dense down there that they realize people have these, garages that they can build above. They can't build sideways.
You have an extra 500 square feet of roof. You can park somebody there.
Well, I think it's called the coach house because there are actually some of the houses that still have the old coach house that essentially used to be the barn where they keep, if you've got a 150-year-old house, where they actually have the coach house in the back where you keep the horses and the stables and everything else.
Wow.
And probably the guy who tended to the horses lived up there.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's a tenant.
Yeah. Yeah, a different era.
Yeah. So how did you guys, you guys saw and you have an extensive background on mortgage, Jonathan. We're talking 90 agents, over $1 billion in lending, or lent out. It's how did you guys get together? What happened that you guys said, okay, cool, we have to start educating people on stuff like this?
Well, I'll go back to how we get together, and this is so first of all, for clarification, currently do not have that. That was a number of years back, went through so a life transition a few years back. And so with that, kind of started over again. And when I started over again, that's where Geoff and I had met, I'll say back in my past life, and we happened to run into each other at an event. And
I actually have a mug from the event right now, Jonathan.
Oh, there we go. And so we ran into each other. We hadn't seen each other in a couple of years. We ran into each other, just started chatting, and he's just, oh, you're doing mortgages. Well, I hear you've gone through some changes. What are you doing with your mortgage license? Come talk with us. So,
yeah. Wow.
So that's kind of how we kind of reconnected, and the conversation started there. We started doing a few things together. And with that, I'll just say that when I made the decision to fully get back into it, obviously it was in part of Geoff's persuading, and through conversations we had. But then it's like, no, you know what? If doing this, I'll say that I've obviously in the past, I learned a lot, but I've also learned things that are not as effective as they can be. Let's really do it the right way. Let's take these various tools and pieces and really build things, what I view as really the right way, which is looking at what is it truly in the client's best interest? How can we truly help them? And then from there, it's how can we truly set the agents we work with up to be successful?
Yeah.
Because with those, sorry, I know you want to jump in, but just when I had the larger team, I just know that some agents did well, some did not so well, but it came down to more who they were. Didn't really teach them how to truly build a business. Didn't teach them. I know when you were on our podcast, we spoke a lot about cold calling.
Yeah.
Didn't really teach them how to cold call. So that's really what we're teaching. On multiple levels, teaching our agents, hey, here's how to cold call. Here's how you start building relationships. Here's the follow-ups you need to be doing, all these steps. And at the same time, here's what we're really bringing as value to our clients, to our referral partners, such as Realtors, that gives you real reason to call and real reason why they would at least want to listen to what you're saying.
Yeah. What's that conversation has to be, right? Like, what are you calling about? It's one of the comments that was made right before we click start on the recording. It's important. It's mind-boggling to think that we spent so much time as entrepreneurs. We spend so much time learning about the craft of our business, but not necessarily learning about the financial part of the business. We don't study the money part. We study, for example, if you're a plumber, you get really good at plumbing, but you don't really study the cash flow of things. Same thing, as homeowners, we'll get really good at certain things, but understanding that, how cash flows and the tools that we can come in and then use and improve, like those are often, so strange that we don't know what we don't know. Like it really comes down to that at the end of the day. And just understanding right now from this conversation alone, it's understanding there's different ways of doing things. Restructuring, for example, the way that you make the payments even is impactful. So bringing that to the forefront to the clients and to agents to empower them to have those conversations is huge. It's huge.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you if you guys had, what kind of resources do you guys have for, that type of conversation, or, agents altogether?
So we actually have a training program for agents. We're starting to roll it out as we speak. We have a website they can go to at mortgageplan.com. And there we start to introduce them to our world and how we build value for the client, then the realtor, then them last, which sucks. The one thing I would say to any entrepreneur is, if you're just getting started in any of these businesses, whether it's a realtor, an investor, or a mortgage agent, turn this off right now and just go do it, because you don't want to know what you don't know. Go figure that out on your own, because it's scary. You have to learn all the finances, the P&Ls, all of that stuff. That's just a smidgen. I never thought I'd know how to code a website.
Yeah,
I know how to code a web, very, very, very rudimentary. It's like I'm coding in crayon, but I've had to learn to do those things over the years, just because that's what an entrepreneur does.
Yeah.
But for agents that are starting out, one of the biggest things, yes, we give you something to cold call with, but more importantly, we teach you what to say and how to say it. That's the most important part of it. There's nothing worse than somebody calling up and reading a script and being like, hi, Rafael, it's Geoff calling from the in-house mortgage team. And you don't get through on the phone like that. You just don't.
You get a lot of hangups.
Oh my gosh. I can't tell you the last time I had a hang up. And it's simple tricks, but there's a lot of, are you familiar with neuro linguistics programming?
Yeah, NLP.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm certified in something called human interaction technology, and so is Jonathan. It's very similar to NLP, but I would say it's kind of a evolution or a spin-off, kind of like Bruce Lee created Jeet Kune Do from Kung Fu. It's kind of one of those things. And right in the very beginning, the biggest thing we do is, if I were to get on the phone with you, be like, hi, Rafael, it's Geoff calling from the in-house mortgage team.
Yeah.
Now, it's a complete cold call, but I've made it sound like you know me.
Yeah.
And that half a second,
alone. The tone alone, yeah.
That half a second of you going, do I know him?
Yeah.
That's all I need to keep you on the phone. That's like putting your foot in the door. Everything else that happens from there is very crafted. And my cold calls are like 30 seconds long. Yeah. And I have people, I'm not looking to convince people. I'm trying to sort them. Yes, no, maybe. Maybes I'll probably come back to. Yeses I deal with, and those, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
But once my favorite thing is when you have somebody that you're working with call you up and say, I hate you because you're always right when you tell me to do these things. And they're uncomfortable and they don't make sense and they don't seem like they should work. Yeah. But once you understand how people's minds work, it's really easy to get them to break their routines. Because that's, I met with a gentleman earlier today. By the end of the meeting, he's like, all right, so what's next steps? And I think that's where a lot of people get messed up. They don't know what their next steps are. We have a program all the way to the next steps. Here, do these things so that they know what to do, so the client knows what to do. And nobody's ever wondering, the worst thing you can have is a confused person, because confused people do nothing.
Oh, yeah. It's I'm a huge believer in instruction, as opposed to education, right? Education can be theoretical, can be, but instruction is hard to mess up. If you have, okay, cool, step 1, step 2, step 3, this is what you do. This is the button that you press, and or whatever the context is. People respond a lot better to that kind of flow of things. Right. So,
I think they should almost have a trade seal for sales and marketing, because it's a learned skill. There's nobody that's born a salesperson.
Yeah.
There's people that have the gift of gab. Actually, I have one guy that I know that is a born salesperson, but anybody other than him, you'd have to know the guy. But you have to learn the skills. You have to grow. You have to, hit your finger with the hammer a few times before you understand not to do those things.
Especially now, like right now, we are in a time where you have to just, fine tune your craft, whatever your craft is. If it's sales, you have to learn how to highlight the, the pros and the cons and the negatives, or the product, put it all out there. Transparency is a must, right? You have to get into that flow of conversations now, more than ever. People are freaked out, about spending money. Why? Because gas is so expensive, because consumer goods are just going through the roof, because inflation is nuts, and we're trying to sell them what, you know what I mean? So it's important to understand, one, the conversation, the skill set that's required, and fine tune your craft. It's a must. It really is. It really is. Otherwise, like, people are going to be out of business. I mean, I see people falling out of business all the time.
Oh, it's tragic. Drive through any small town in Canada or the US, and look at all the empty storefronts on those what used to be vibrant streets. And you tell me people aren't in trouble more than they've ever been.
Yeah.
But, and unfortunately, that can lead to a scarcity mindset. But I don't believe in scarcity. I believe that everything ebbs and flows. Wherever money's going, money's going to come somewhere else. It's always, it's money's an energy. You don't get to keep it. You get to steward it.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't leave with you. It's going somewhere when you go.
Yeah.
And you get to choose where that goes. But one of the things that's always stuck with me, the sayings that's always stuck with me is, nobody loves to be sold, but everyone loves to buy. So how do you bridge that gap? I'll give you an example. I remember walking down Yonge Street in Toronto. If you've never been to Toronto, Yonge Street is the longest street in the world. And it is vibrant and it is full of people. And it's like walking down like Sunset Boulevard. You got your crazies and you got your hoity-toities all in the same place. And I walked, it must have been, I would say, close to 2 miles, trying to translate what the walk would be from kilometers. But I was trying to hand out a $5 bill. I walked for 2 miles going, here, take this $5 bill. Here, take this $5 bill. And people would not take that $5 bill.
Really?
Yeah. It is such an interesting social experiment to try. Now, if I had handed it to maybe a homeless guy, he would have taken it, obviously.
Yeah,
but anybody that
expectation there, yeah.
Yeah, but anybody who's kind of in that working class, probably middle income, middle class upbringing, you try and hand a $5 bill to a stranger on the street and they'll look at you like you got two heads.
What is this guy doing?
What's the catch? And unfortunately, opportunity does hit people like that every single day, but they're always looking for the negative part of it. So if we get really good at selling what we sell, and we know in our heart of hearts that it's really good for the person,
then
there's no conflict internally, coming from a higher power or whatever. I feel that when I help somebody get into the next stage of what we do, whenever I sell something, I know that it's good for them, and they wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for us. So every time we get that to happen, and we get it to happen the right way, it's not by accident. It's a skill, and it's something that people can learn, and anybody can learn it. Anybody can learn it. And in fact, learning the skills of persuasion and neurolinguistics programming and all of that stuff, I've very, very adamantly had to make a pact with the person that taught it to me that I would never use it to harm people, because it's powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you look into the greatest world leaders, good or bad, they knew a lot of this manipulation stuff.
Yeah.
And if you're using it for good to help people, then the world gets better. If you use it for bad, goodness only knows what can happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, it all comes down to the ability to communicate, to have conversations with people. And you're absolutely right about, the fact that you can use it in a very positive way or a very negative way. Manipulation, leading and that sort of thing. It's a very real thing. Like, it happens. Now, when you're trying to help somebody, a lot of times it can have a certain degree of stigma, right? By default, if you have a product and I'll speak, from my experience, Latino community, I'm Mexican, so it's like, oh, you can be having a great conversation for 2 or 3 hours, and the second you find out that person is, is a salesperson for whatever, like, the energy change. I thought you were my friend, but you want to sell me a burrito or something else. That's the real thing behind this, 2-hour long conversation. So there's always a stigma behind that kind of stuff, right? And I think at the end of the day, it really comes down to transparency and being able to communicate in a way that other people understand us. So again, like crafting your skill set is huge. It's huge. I mean, fine-tuning that kind of stuff. So tell me a few things. I don't know, maybe give me the top 3 things that somebody with a mortgage can do to help themselves through the process of paying it faster.
So,
Jonathan.
I mean, where you really want to start with
the top 3.
The top 3. Well, top 1. Find a good mortgage professional who you know, like, and trust. I mean, that's the number 1 thing. You want to make sure someone who is giving you advice that is truly in your best interest.
There's little shady mortgage agents out there.
Yeah. Now, as far as getting into, and the next 2 I'll get into really specifically what I was talking about, and that is if you qualify and can get a line of credit, that is one of the best strategies you can use to pay your mortgage down. It's just how to use your line of credit as a checking account. And I'll go back to the mortgage professional, whoever the mortgage professional you're using is. If they cannot guide you and advise, and I don't just mean advise and say, hey, we set this up and do it. If you pick the wrong numbers on that, it can cost you significantly more. And that's one of
the wrong numbers in terms of interests, or
no, in terms of how much you put on the line of credit. You just say, well, I heard you guys mention $10,000, so I put $10,000.
Yeah.
Well, if your cash flow will not keep that $10,000 getting it close to zero by the end of the year, it can actually end up costing you significantly more money, because the line of credit is typically at a higher rate than your mortgage.
Yeah.
And so if that I'll just say that line of credit ends up ballooning where you're not actually paying it off and it keeps getting higher, because you picked the wrong number to start with, then that can do you more harm than good. So you need somebody who can truly break it down. And this is where we've got some pretty detailed spreadsheets we go through, getting detailed budgets on the client before we set this up. So number 1, finding somebody who can understand the right strategy. Number 2, actually setting this up, getting it set up for your best interest. Now, the third one, I'll just say, if you don't qualify for that today, let's just say you got into mortgage, you had to go to secondary financing, you don't qualify for a line of credit for a whole range of reasons. Your credit's not strong enough for anything else. Again, getting the right advice to here's what you can do. So that way in a year's time, in 2 years' time, we can get this set up for you. So now you can start using the strategy and really start to accelerate your family's financial future.
Doing the prep work, right? To get to that point. Is that what you mean by that?
Well, for instance, someone comes in, I want to do this. Well, great. Yours is what, FICO score, correct? Yeah, well, I mean, we call it Beacon Score, FICO Score. It's same thing, same credit companies, just called different north and south of the border.
Yeah.
So your FICO score is 400. You don't qualify for this right now. Yeah, we can get you a mortgage. Here's how, or you've got a mortgage right now, but because of the way your credit is, you're not going to qualify for this. Because of the way your income is, you're not going to qualify for this. Now, let's go through your credit. Here are the things you can improve on your credit so that way in a year's time, in 2 years' time, now we can get you set up that way.
Yeah.
So Jonathan has his top 3. I have my top 1. It's because I'm a sales guy through and through. You can go to guidetothegrind.com, click on next step, register for our next event. We do 2 a month for homeowners. That one's at noon and one's at 7 p.m. So if you miss one, come on the other one, not a problem. And click on next step. And
these are principles that, I mean, they can be applicable across the board.
Concomitant, I believe would be a good word. Yes. Some things may be slightly different.
Yeah.
But I know people have done this in Australia. I know people have done it in the US. It works more or less everywhere. You just have to make sure the biggest thing, if you're going to be using your credit card in conjunction, is just make sure that you know the date that you have to pay it. and leave that lag time so that like a couple of days, so that when you transfer from your line of credit, you're not getting, you're not getting dinged for a day of interest, because that'll seriously affect your bottom line.
Yeah, late payments and stuff. So this is guidetothegrind.com, and then click on next steps.
Next step. Yep. Next step. That's for any homeowner that wants to learn how to do this. And of course, we have a realtor section on there as well for realtors who want to get educated on how to do this for their client. We've actually got one of those coming up. When is this? We're November 1st. We've got one coming up this Thursday, but I don't know when this airs. We have 2 of those a month as well.
So you do them twice a month? I'm going to give this to my agents.
Yeah. Fantastic.
I'm going to have them go check it out. So
that's terrible. I just sold you, and I didn't even mean to.
Wow.
Magic.
Unbelievable. I gotta go to those NLP trainings that you're looking at.
Well, no, and this just goes back to the original principle of value. There's value there. You see it, you want to get it. You know, if we get to do business together, great. If we don't, we're still leading with value. So at the end of the day, if there's money in our pocket, awesome. Awesome. But if somebody gets to change their life because of it, that's even more fulfilling to us.
Yeah. You mentioned, you're saying this in a very particular way, which kind of reminds me of, I used to have this stigma about charging for stuff. I really had a problem charging and giving myself the value that I was putting out there. And I felt like I was having really good, conversations. My products were on point. I'd spent, very, very diligent on the quality of the stuff and everything. Right. Yet when it came to value, like I would just devalue myself, out of the profits. And, at the end of the day, like you gotta make it count. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Yeah, anything of value is valuable. so there has to be an exchange of value there. So yeah, no, I'm all for it. I mean, I used to have this different thought when it came down to, okay, like for example, paying for mentorship, going to trainings and just because again, I had that conditioning where like, oh, I thought you want to sell me something. And I mean, it is what it is. Like it's a cultural thing for me. It was absolutely a cultural thing, but just kind of breaking out of that helped me see a lot of the potential and just understanding that I don't know what I don't know, and that's costing me on a daily basis. So.
Amen to that. That's the biggest thing I've learned from all of my education from going to other people is that it cuts down how long it takes you to screw things up. Screw them up more, screw them up faster, you'll get better.
Next thing you know, you're in this wheelhouse of just one after another, and you get a collection. But it's not necessarily the collection I want, but it's it's I mean it's very true. It's very true. So cool. I love it. Usually we break down into mindset and business strategy and all kinds of stuff, but I thought this conversation was very appropriate, especially just because of where we are in time, right? As a society, US, Canada, we're going through changes. I mean, there's changes in the States, impact everywhere else. Changes across the ocean impact us. So we're all in this together at the end of the day, like different countries and whatnot, but you can still come up with principles that are applicable and help across the board, which is important. So I mean, I figured we just kind of hone in on the strategies that you guys were talking about, and that's going to be guidetothegrind.com. Click on next step. Twice a month you guys are doing the trainings on this kind of stuff. Okay,
twice a month for realtors, twice a month for homeowners.
Perfect.
So we alternate weeks.
Oh, awesome. I'm going to make sure to have those or have that link in the show notes as well. And with that being said, I do have a question. This is my favorite question, and it's more of a self, a question of the self than business or anything like that. But it's if you guys were walking down the street and you ran into your 17-year-old self, what would you tell that kid? And I want an answer from each one of you guys.
Jonathan, go ahead.
You can't do a combo answer.
Well, if I saw my 17-year-old self, it would just I just go to, believe in yourself. I just look at 17, and my biggest thing was just I doubted myself so much. So it's really just believe in myself, believe in, hey, look at who you become.
Yeah.
Look at who you can be, and truly just believe in who you are. Have faith in yourself. Just have faith in how strong you are.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. Geoff?
It's a really good question. I only get one thing that I could tell myself.
Yeah, one.
I love what Jonathan said. I really think that stops a lot of people. I think that the big thing would be, hey, there's going to be a lot of fears that come up you're not used to, but they're not true. You know, there's that period between about 2025 when that comfort zone narrows down real small. That's a life killer for a lot of people.
Yeah.
That time when you stop learning, you know, you're out of school, but you should never stop learning.
Yep.
I would tell myself in that period, double your learning. I hated school, but I loved learning. Double your learning.
Wow. You know, that makes a lot of sense. A lot of sense. One of the sharpest dudes I know, he's 27 years old now. His name is Cody. And he started real young, and he doubled down during the 20s, like early 20s, 20, 21, 22. He was a millionaire by 25. But like he started doing just, you know, entrepreneur stuff. I mean, you know, multi-level type of stuff. You broke into that at the beginning, crushed it, and then moved into something else. But he started looking, you know, for that opportunity and doubling down on the learning. And he's such a wise person, you know, and he's young, super young. I did totally the opposite when I was in my early 20s.
Me too.
Yeah. No, so I figured out, you know what, I can do stuff. I'll just do stuff instead of learning. And I mean the learning curve just got longer and longer and longer there for a good period of time. Stress levels went through the roof, and I did a lot of things that I feel now, I mean, they were just absolutely wrong because I didn't know what I didn't know. And I didn't, you know, make an emphasis of just growing, right, and understanding, you know, things, you know, a little better. I've always been an action taker, so it's never been a problem. But you know, I got to a point where I felt like I had this false sense of confidence, and I stopped learning. I was like, no, I know it all. I know it all. I'm 19. You know, I can, I got this. And
I heard it said, once you make that statement, it just shows how little you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Like, man. So I love both of those answers. Guys, thank you so much. I mean, this is really good stuff. You know, when it comes down to providing tools and empowering the people out there, I mean, it's huge, right? If you turn it and just restructure a couple of things, for example, you know, instead of doing the monthly, you know, front loading that, it's going to be the same amount. It's not going to impact the flow of things if you know, structure things right. It's a huge benefit and advantage for just the regular homeowner out there. It's things like that, I think, that when they're, you know, put out there, you know, to the masses, can really make an impact. So I encourage everybody listening to go out there and then check it out. And I want to thank you guys for stopping by and dropping these golden nuggets on us.
Yeah, thank you. This has been absolutely awesome. I love always talking to you. You've got great energy, and I know we've got you coming back on our show sometime in the very near future. So that's awesome. And I really do love these conversations because, you know, even though you're, I don't know how many thousands of miles away and in a different part of the world and come from different cultures, people at the end of the day, we all have the same needs, desires, and wants, more or less. And part of that is, you know, being safe, secure, and happy. Yeah. And being able, you know, if we all thought the same way, it'd be a great world. We don't. But when we can find kinship in people that do think the same way and want to contribute and make the world a better place, those are the people I want to spend more time with. So thank you for having us on here, because I like spending time with you, Rafael.
Thank you guys for making it happen too. Amen, man.
Just want to say it was a lot of fun. I mean, obviously you were just on our podcast. I think it was just last week that we actually did the recording. So yeah, so to be on and have really a follow-up conversation where you're now asking us questions. I really enjoyed this. So thanks a lot.
Flipping the script. Let's go.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Great having you guys. Thank you so much. Family, there you guys have it. Stay focused. You got this.